Culture is the characteristics of a particular group of people defined by everything from language, religion, cuisine, social habits, music and the arts. Welcome to Derry Londonderry UK City of Culture 2013. Welcome to the show. It's just me this time as Oren's taking a short break. This month's show comes from Echo Dance Theatre Company, one of Ireland's leading dance companies. The company offers a unique approach to dance performance and participation. They produce original performance work for their international tours and offer inclusive and diverse education programmes. Opening onto the city walls, this wonderful old building is Echo's new permanent home in the city. Inside is host to an interesting and unusual project that has captured fascinating footage of our city and its inhabitants. More on that later. Coming up on the show today, Culture Night across the city was a resounding success. Doors and gates were unlocked to mark European Heritage Day. The walled city tattoo. What is it, you ask? You're about to find out. In homes, in schools and on stage, the National Youth Orchestra play their hearts out. And we bid a fond farewell to one of Ireland's greatest poets, Seamus Heaney. Culture Night is an annual event in the Irish calendar where people of all ages get an opportunity to discover, explore and experience their cultural identity, from Belfast to Cork, Dublin to Galway and everywhere in between. Cultural organisations and regional authorities produce a packed programme of free cultural events for all to enjoy, and Derry Londonderry is no exception. Culture Night was on Friday the 20th of September and our cameras were out and about to catch the action.
Well, Culture Nights is Derry's 4th year in participating, and each year it's been growing from success to success. Some of the highlights, we've music in the Guildhall Square, we have the Craft Village, the fashion show, we've got an open mic night, comedy, so there's a range of activities for people to enjoy. So for us it's to try and get people out there to explore and to, I guess, enjoy what we have to offer.
Bring local girls together with amazing designs by local designers, a mixture of different retailers. Culture Night for our city is a staple in educating our city on what it has to offer the people who live within it, and of course the visitors as well.
I'm doing a bit of Indian arts and crafts. So just teaching anybody and everybody how to make Indian tea light candle holders.
Oh, it's good to see Culture Nights now a regular event in the calendar. I've moved inside now to Echo's splendid new dance studio where the space has been transformed into a 7-screen video installation by artist Rosemary Lee. And with me now is Echo's Ailbe Byrne. Hello Ailbe.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I wanted to ask you about Echo as a company. It's known for its very different approach from other dance companies. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean Echo was founded in the early 90s and was relocated to Derry probably around 1997, so we've really built up a reputation for being quite a unique dance company. The movement style of the company draws on a wide range of movement styles. Improvisation plays a big role in that as well. We've a big programme of productions, touring. We've a festival coming up in November, so it's really a unique company in that way. This is a very special project that we've produced for City of Culture Year with the artist Rosemary Lee. Rosemary, her work is quite resonant with the work of Echo Echo in the way that it connects professional work with community and outreach work. So we have a cast of around 500 people involved. You can see the outcome here on the screens. There's also a beautiful sound score by the artist Graham Miller. So we've had a great response to this over the last number of weeks while it's been open, and really we're encouraging people to come along to see it while it's running.
Yeah, well, it's really fantastic. Thanks very much for having us today and for chatting to me. Thank you. Now this year we've shown you some of our city's most impressive architecture. Buildings like St Columb's Cathedral and the Guildhall are great for telling the story of Derry Londonderry, but the land is littered with history, and more often than not some of the most interesting stories are hidden away behind locked gates and bolted doors. Starting in France in the 1980s, European Heritage Open Days offer us a chance to see some of those hidden gems. Rory McSwiggan has been taking a look.
From German cathedrals to French chateaux, throughout Europe today, doors are opening and people are discovering wonders on their own doorstep. And right here, as part of City of Culture 2013, we're exploring some of the ancient and modern history of our landscape. This is Ashbrook House, set in natural parkland just outside the city on the River Fohan. The oldest part of the house was built around 1595 by George Ash, and his ancestors continue to live here to this day. During the Second World War, Ashbrook formed part of Base 1 Europe camp and was home to the US Marines. Most memorably, General George Marshall, Harry Hopkins and Averell Harriman came here to stay whilst on their tour of inspection of US troops. I'm joined now by Mrs. Beresford Ash, who is the current resident of the house. Thank you very much for letting us see around this beautiful home.
Delighted to welcome you at Ashbrook. I'm home for the last 45 years.
45 years, that's fantastic. And we're just talking about that very famous visit. I gather that there's one sort of special artefact that still remains from that time.
They stayed here, and my father-in-law, Major Douglas Beresford Ash, went down to the cellar to get one of his very best bottles. It's a very good vintage, it's 1929. And it's Chateau Pichon Longueville. I'm told it's a very good bottle, and there it is, still with us, and very much a treasure.
Definitely a treasure, yeah, and so many treasures in this house. And 1595 was the first time that the house was occupied, was built.
Yes. The Ashes were pre-plantation family. They were living here already, whether the Beresford came with the plantation. And somewhere along the line, the two neighbouring families married into each other and became Beresford Ash. My daughter Melanie has given the name of Ash to her children, so there will always be Ashes at Ashbrook.
Many buildings and monuments in Derry have had a facelift for the City of Culture. The Windmill, here on the grounds of Lumen Christi College, played an important role in the siege of 1689. Conservation work has been carried out recently to remove damaging plants, and formerly blocked up entrances have been now reopened. During the siege, this area was known as Windmill Hill. It saw some of the fiercest fighting when Jacobite soldiers, supporters of the Catholic King James II, seized this windmill and used it to store ammunitions. 200 people were killed on this very spot. What we do know about this building is that it was a 17th century windmill used for making flour. But now there's a new twist to the story. Because of the design of the structure, there is a belief that this in fact could have been a round tower. And the theory now is that this could in fact have been the original monastic site of Columkill, the founder of this city. But this is a theory that remains to be proven. At one time, the city had 4 railway stations serving the entire northwest of Ireland. In 1965, much of the railway infrastructure of Ireland was sadly decommissioned, and now Derry has only one line connecting to Belfast. But here, on the site of the old Foyle Road station, stands the Foyle Valley Railway Museum. A dedicated group of former rail workers set up the museum to preserve the history of the vast contribution the railway made to the city. This old station is filled with memorabilia from the time. These carriages were pulled by the mighty engine Columkill, named after our patron saint.
Thanks, Rory. Being the UK City of Culture has really opened our eyes to the history all around us, and it's done the same for visual art. We now have no less than 9 art galleries in and around the city centre. Back in the early 80s, one in particular stood out. The Orchard Gallery was where a young up-and-coming artist called Willie Doherty got his first taste of the world of modern art. And since then, his video and text-based work has taken him all around the world, from New York and Texas to Munich and Amsterdam. This month saw the opening of a major retrospective exhibition of Willie's work, and our cameras were there.
This is a significant exhibition. It's the first time that I've shown such a large body of this work in Derry. I think some of my frustration with the way in which Derry was represented through photojournalism spurred me to, lift the camera myself and make my own contribution. But I wanted to find another way of thinking about and making images of the place, avoiding the kind of cliches that we all know of photojournalism.
This has been 2 years in the making, and we've been talking about it for 4 years. And it's been such a brilliant journey, such a great experience, and such a great learning experience for us at the Nerve Centre in particular, to co-curate along with Matt's gallery.
All the photos and videos in these shows are the ones that Willie has made in Derry. Everything I know about Willie Doherty and everything I know about Derry, I've seen through his eyes.
You can see here the range of works from the early black and white photographs using text to the later colour images and then the more recent video works. And through that process, of course, his work has gained more and more international attention. But fundamentally, the work is about communication. It speaks both ways, both into the community in the city and then out to the wider community in an international environment.
It's a great thing to see so many different works that expand through various different years in one space now, that work so perfectly together, and it's such a well curated show as well. But it's great to see it back in the city again.
Your first audience is yourself as the artist, as the producer, and then it kind of goes out in kind of concentric rings or circles. Well, I try not to kind of anticipate what people may say or what they may think about the work, because invariably you're wrong.
There's a rawness and a realness, and I think there's always artistic integrity, certainly from any of the work that I've seen of Willie's, and I think that's really, really important for any artist. It's deep-rooted in this place.
I think it's something so many of us have lived with in subject matter. It's something I think we all can connect to. We're familiar with it, but he always pulls out something that's different, that's uncomfortable, it just makes you stop and look and think again.
Nobody else could see Derry in the way that Willie Doherty sees it. Vicious scenes, from our unfortunate history. Just to see the scene where it happened and the road bifurcating sort of reminded me vividly, far more vividly, than had there been a picture of the body crumpled on the ground.
This is our very own, twice nominated Turner Prize artist. It's a very moving experience looking at some of these images again, and it sends your mind back into that mode of inquiry and memory and recollection.
If you make work about the things that interest you and excite you, then I think it's easier to sustain the work then. And I think that's the important thing over the long term, is to have a practice that you can sustain and will interest you and hopefully interest others.
An amazing body of work, and we're looking forward to much, much more contemporary art when the Turner Prize arrives at Ebrington at the end of the month. Still to come in the programme, the National Youth Orchestra and a tribute to the late Seamus Heaney. But it's time now to take a look at what else has been happening in the City of Culture in the past month. Hollyoaks, the long-running teen soap opera, rolled into town to shoot special episodes in September. The scenes will be shown on Channel 4 in the UK later in the year. Artists Ackroyd and Harvey transformed the Cunningham building in Ebrington with newly sown grass as part of the Void Gallery's Sites project. They previously altered the appearance of buildings like the National Theatre in London and Inishbarakan in Galway. The Conquest of Happiness, based on the writings of renowned pacifist Bertrand Russell, had its world premiere at Ebrington Square. The work was a collaboration between Belfast-based Prime Cut Productions and Haris Pasovic from Sarajevo. And Culture Tech came to the city for the second year in a row. Spaces around the city were filled with the latest entertainment technology to showcase some of the latest work in the world of digital. Now, as part of their Music Promise project and to ensure a cultural legacy beyond 2013, the Culture Company has been working with schools, colleges, local community groups and the creative arts sector. They funded artist in residence programmes, after-school arts programmes and cultural nights. Part of the year-long project saw the arrival of the National Youth Orchestra of Great Britain to the city. During their week-long visit, the Youth Orchestra collaborated with young musicians and choirs, performing together across the city, on the streets and in people's homes before giving a farewell concert. Here's some of the highlights from their visit.
Today, there are 164 young musicians from the National Youth Orchestra, meeting about 120 young musicians from Derry, across a huge range of abilities from grade 2 right up to grade 8 distinction and way beyond. And they're doing lots of projects where they're playing along together. The purpose of all of this is to inspire young musicians, to create encounters between young musicians, to meet through music, to experience the people of Derry, for the people of Derry, to experience the National Youth Orchestra.
We've had the beautiful project Play at Our Place, where we have 2 NYO musicians and 2 local musicians together performing people's living rooms. And I was really privileged to kind of join Saoirse's family in her kitchen.
Oh, it's been fantastic. It's been brilliant. Love the music, just fantastic.
I'm just amazed they have these kids on here in our kitchen.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You should be paying a fortune to watch these kids, they're great.
So on the streets we've had National Youth Orchestra musicians and local musicians from Derry performing together, basically busking for about an hour and a half around different streets and spots in the city. We've had the brass section on Castlegate, we've had the percussion section in the Guildhall Square, and we've also done fanfares.
Well, on the streets there were various ensembles literally saturating the city centre with music, so you couldn't turn a corner but you were going to bump into yet another ensemble.
For the NYO musicians, I think that the range of experiences, they feel that they've come to a place that loves music, that appreciates what they do, that has a sense of infinite possibility. And they all have this feeling of like, what are you going to surprise us with next? What might we have to do next? And they're very open to it. So thank you very much for that.
That really was a great week. In August, 15,000 people gathered in Ebrington Square to experience the first ever Walled City tattoo. This will be remembered as one of the highlights of the UK City of Culture 2013. The 4-night event brought together the best of local and international talent. The 500-strong cast included the world-famous top-secret drum corps from Switzerland, the African Warriors from Tanzania, pipe and flute bands from Northern Ireland, and hundreds of Highland and Irish dancers.
The Walled City Tattoo is primarily a celebration of music, song and dance, as you can hear in the background here, and it's our way of celebrating our culture.
I just thought it was wonderful to see the city happy again, and you think what's gone on here in the past over the hundreds of years, and now to see all the good things about Northern Ireland and about Londonderry coming out is absolutely brilliant.
It's been great. It's been a full house here, and as you can hear now, the bands have just started the finale, and the crowds are going absolutely wild.
Amazing, you know, you don't get that kind of crowd whenever you're playing the pipe bands, and just to get the response and playing with all these different kind of acts is amazing, so it is a brilliant experience.
Well, I thought it was really very good, and the atmosphere was tremendous.
The Walled City Tattoo is epic, yeah. And the Walled City Tattoo is hopefully coming back next year.
I'd love this to come back to town because it would be like so much fun doing it again.
It was great fun learning all new steps for the dances and just meeting a whole pile of new people and friends.
What a fantastic spectacle. Hopefully we'll see more from the tattoo in the years to come. Before we go, let's have a look at some more of the culture we can look forward to this fall. The City of Derry International Choral Festival is the only event of its kind in the UK. As well as performing all over the city, choirs from Italy, Belarus, England, Ireland and Cuba will compete for a prestigious trophy. Teenage Kicks, a punk musical, is the story of a Derry teenager who finds his way to Iowa in 1978. Written by acclaimed author Colin Bateman, it will feature classic punk songs from the likes of the Undertones and the Buzzcocks. Acclaimed Derry-based writer Jennifer Johnson's 3 monologues were written in response to the Troubles in Northern Ireland. This is an opportunity to showcase the lesser-known dramatic work of one of Ireland's greatest living writers. The WOW Festival comes to the city in November. Women of the World celebrates the achievements of women and talks about the obstacles they face. This 3-day festival of discussion, music and comedy starts in November. Seamus Heaney. He was a modest man with a friendly hello and welcoming smile. By the cut of him, you wouldn't have recognised him as a great poet, a playwright, a translator and lecturer, a recipient of the Nobel Prize in Literature, a professor at Harvard and Oxford. But that's what he was. And he was much more too. He was a family man and a great and deep thinker, and he was a Derry man, a County Derry man, and very much a country man, which is evident in much of his poetry. Such was his communicative power that the death of Seamus Heaney came as a great shock to people the world over. His untimely death is borne out by the fact that he had planned to officially open a local poetry festival titled On Home Ground, but that was not to be. Instead, the event became a tribute to the Poet Laureate, and our cameras were there. We'll leave you now with his words. Until next time, bye-bye.
History says don't hope on this side of the grave. But then, once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up, and hope and history rhyme.
The
genesis of the festival was the poetry evenings that we hold regularly at Laurel Villa. Seamus Heaney was to open the festival. In the aftermath of the passing of Seamus, we decided that we had a tribute, in other words, a number of poets and writers coming to celebrate Seamus Heaney's works by introducing and then reading one of their favourite Heaney pieces. That's what's happening here tonight.
Oh, my Pablo of earth life, when I tasted the stuff, it was freshets and orbs. My eyes were on stalks.
2 years ago, a Melbourne poet recommended that if I was in Marifelt, there's a fella there with his wife who runs a poetry-themed B&B. Don't miss it. So came to Marifelt, saw the B&B, and Eugene, at very short notice, threw me into the car with about 10 Heaney poetry books, and we set off for 8 hours on the road, starting at Duff's Corner and finishing at Castle Dawson.
There's something strange about reading a man's work when the man is no longer living. And one of the things that struck me was that he was a master elegist, and any poet who is thinking of writing an elegy in memoriam Seamus Heaney will have a very daunting task, because Seamus himself has set the elegy bar so high.
Her breath and mine are fluent dipping knives, never closer the whole rest of our lives. Thank you.
Or mention even in the years to come. And now the man who drove them here will drive them back. And by evening... I think tonight has been remarkable to hear Seamus's poems, which stand up in any context, read in different people's voices. And I think being a man of great integrity and life force, he's brought the best out of the people who read, and the affection and devotion and appreciation for him in the whole marquee in the audience is tangible.
I think it was a very appropriate way to mark 3 weeks on from his death. I think it was a very appropriate way to mark in his own place and among his own people who own him first, and then, of course, and among members of his family. And I think in his own landscape, this was the perfect place to have an evening like this.
So hope for a great sea change on the far side of revenge. Believe that a farther shore is reachable from here. Believe in miracles and cures and healing wells.